Welcome to the Mo podcast.
A place where individual stories come to life.
This is how we need to be communicating with people. This is how we support people's personal development.
It's important to speak about people believing in people.
The more you're able to let go of your limitation, the more you step into your power, your inner authentic power.
Mo, a place for me, others, everyone.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Mo Podventures. We're joined today by Dani Yeomans. Dani, huge welcome from us at Mo.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And would you introduce yourself in that Mo way, where you tell us a bit about who you are without referencing a job title or a relation to another human being or labels?
Who I am. You're going to hear a pause because I love that question.
And we're cooking.
Exactly. It's like the question of all questions, isn't it? Who are you at the core? I'm human, right? And I'm a unique human in my own right. I don't always necessarily feel unique. I think there's something around the human condition and shared experiences. If anything, I'm curious about that, maybe a bit too curious, which is why we have ended up where we are right now and how I've ended up doing what I do right now, which I won't speak about because you said about job titles.
Yeah, and we'll definitely come to that. And yes, another way I think a question that can help like elucidate or bring out some of those ideas is like, what might Dani be doing on a typical Tuesday or Wednesday evening? How do you spend your energy?
I fluctuate from day to day, and I can go from very different levels of energy.
Yeah.
So, one day I can wake up in the morning and I'm quite happy dancing around my kitchen whilst I'm waiting for the kettle to boil. Right? And another day, not so much. I'm just feeling, that bit of an internal movement where, I just feel like I need a bit of space to space to myself is where I was going with that.
Space to yourself. Yeah. Nice. And tell us a little bit about professional Dani and everything that you do in a typical week or month or year that you consider to be work.
Professional Dani. That's been quite a storyline, I think, for me. So it depends where you'd like me to start.
Yeah, just give us the present tense snapshot, and we might get into the journey that led you here.
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, I'm freelance as an organisational consultant and coach. So my background is in psychology, specifically work psychology. So I work with individuals, teams, organisations that want to effectively make work better. I realised that was something that was really important to me. A few years after I entered the working world, of course, wouldn't have thought about it prior to that, had other concerns, other priorities, but it's a big part of our lives. And, for the traditional, maybe 9 to 5 worker that's full-time, you'll spend 84,000, I believe, 365, something around those lines, hours at work in your lifetime. And
wow.
Yeah, for me, it's around how can we make that good and how can we make it better than good, and work for us as individuals and the people around us that we care for.
Nice. And as a freelance organizational development, was consultant the word you used? Sorry. Yeah. As a freelance OD consultant and coach, how does that typically look like in your week or in an average week for you?
Yeah, sure. So I coach people primarily in management or leadership roles, but not only. I always make that very, very clear. It's just kind of where my career has taken me. So that can look like one-to-one coaching. It changes again depending on the work. I think freelance is such a difficult space to kind of like box up your time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll be doing one-to-one work, sometimes I'll be doing group coaching, kind of action learning sets, and other times I'll be working, in that consulting space, working with businesses around maybe something that they'd like to, can use this word lightly, achieve or change, and how they might get there. So for me, I tend to work in the leadership development space, but that intersects heavily with like well-being, learning, engagement, motivation, and generally people's health and organizational health.
Nice. And thinking about the pragmatic details or the specifics, when you have a contract with an organization, what might be the typical period of that contract? Like, how does it look in a week? Is it 2 days a week? Is it 5 days a week? 9 to 5? Just occasional sessions?
So the coaching can be grouped. So it might be that someone decides to go through a bit of a program. So maybe 6 sessions, 8 sessions. I meet with the individual to find out what might work best for them. And we have a kind of partnered conversation around that. In terms of partnering with organizations, similar conversation. It's all about that contracting. It changes for each organization, but generally it would be day. So day rates, what is the piece of work? Working hard to find out the scope, what's in scope, what's out of scope, and then working out together actually what does this look like in terms of days, and what is within the realm of possibility for that organization as well. Like ultimately my role is to guide and suggest that this might be of interest, but ultimately it's down to the organization to kind of choose that, and kind of what degree they want to work on that.
Amazing, thank you. And which came first in your journey, the organizational development work or the coaching work?
They arrived at pretty similar times, which, to be honest with you, was fairly confusing, because I just decided to change my career and transition to a different space. And I effectively discovered coaching and occupational psychology, so work psychology, all at the same time. And I had finally decided after about 6 or 7 years that I wanted to do occupational psychology. Went back to university to do my master's, and realized that there's a whole coaching route that I could have done, and I loved coaching, and I still love coaching, but because it was so novel at the time, it was something that I was really drawn to. However, I would say that it is included, bundled up with, if you will, work psychology and organizational development. It is not separate from it, but it can be.
Yeah. And while nothing interests us more than coaching, what was the career that you changed to coaching and OD work from?
So my background is in psychology, but I ended up in frontline roles, primarily in charities. So I was changing over from a volunteer coordination management role. So I was hiring and supporting people with lived experience in various multiple disadvantages. So, for example, homelessness, mental ill health, offending, that side of things. I was supporting them to become either mentors or consultants in that space.
Wow.
So they would either go and mentor other people that were going through, a challenging time, or they would work with organizations to effectively, as consultants do, try to make the system better. It might have been places that they were really passionate about because they'd maybe fallen through the cracks in those services,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, they wanted to make a change there wherever possible. So it was my role there to yeah, uh, give them the foundations and just the support to help them do that.
Mm. Nice. So
Mm.
you returned to uni and studied occupational psychology,
Mhm.
studied a master's. And how and when did the Mo course fit around that?
So I believe it was a little while ago now. I believe it's 2019
Hmm.
that I did both. So I was quite, I was in a reflective stage. Um, so this might require a bit of a trigger warning, but my dad
Mm.
had passed away.
Mm.
Um, and I was in that space where you're just questioning, quietly sometimes,
Mm.
just what am I doing? Uh, which I didn't necessarily do before. I was quite content in what I was doing. Um, but it just got me thinking about the future a little bit more.
Mm.
And uh, I had gone to an internal coaching. I think it might have been like some form of workshop,
Mm.
and it really resonated with me. And I realized that that was the part of my job that I was doing that I enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
Talking to people, on a very human level,
Mm.
without that judgment in that kind of space, with people that often felt judged by others in society, and just creating actually that safe space and offering, not from myself, but um, helping them kind of mirror that hope
Hmm.
and what life could be, and reinforcing that people do have their strengths and their capabilities, and almost the art of the possible, right?
Yeah.
And I loved those conversations, so I used to do one-to-one supervisions and things like that, and unknowingly I was using coaching skills at the time, and that only kind of came to light when I went to that coaching
Yeah.
workshop. And yeah, that was a bit of a moment for me, which led me on that kind of path towards coaching. And then I discovered Mo
Mm.
uh, internally as well. So it was signposted to me. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the experience of it. It was a little bit more intangible than most things that I'm used to.
Hmm.
See that psychology background, evidence-based background, and whilst it is evidence-based, we know that there are different ways of doing things within the
Mm.
coaching space, and people tend to experiment and
Slightly
uh,
more fluid or less kind of clinically
yeah.
or less like academically controlled, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think fluid's the word.
Mm.
There's a bit more kind of flexibility there, a bit more freedom, um, which is lovely. But also, as someone that is very evidence-based,
Mm.
learning to kind of embrace that and find the evidence. So I'm still, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I'm still very evidence-based in my practice. I have to
Mhm.
be. If you don't take an evidence-based approach, I think that it can be very, very challenging to kind of learn what works and what
Yeah.
doesn't. Um, and at the end of the day, working with people, right? And you're there to safeguard people
Mm.
and to do what's best for them. And that's really important to me. So the evidence base is really important to me, but it felt a little bit less structured
Hmm.
than previous learning, is where I'm
Yeah.
getting to.
Yeah. Thank you. And how important was it? You talked about already using some coaching skills. and then doing this course and kind of realizing that's what you'd been doing. How important was it? Actually, a better question will probably be, how impactful was it for you to formally qualify those skills with the Mo course that you were already at some level using?
I'm being cautious here, and you can
Uh-huh.
probably see that because you can see me and other people can't see me, but I am really cautious about perhaps would have been an old version of me, which is to collect shiny trophies,
Mm,
if you will, and think that is the end, which uh, you know, however many years down the line, 7, I don't necessarily subscribe to
mm,
anymore. So if at the time it felt really good because I think I had been in my psychology roles and I was looking to progress. And when I use the word progress, kind of find something that was very, very meaningful. And whilst I had that, I felt that there was more. And I found that in coaching.
mm,
Um, and again, I was very, not at the time, but I am very reluctant now to go, actually, I did that and everything fit into place
mm,
because it didn't. There were things that clicked for me
mm,
when I was on that course, and I am very thankful to it
mhm.
because ultimately it has led me in a different direction in my life and career than I thought that I would have gone. But yeah, there's just a slight reluctance there. I can feel it in me. Trying not to get into that space where um, I put it all down to the qualification.
Yeah. Right.
And whilst that kind of it's that tension, which I think lots of uh, according to the research, lots of women tend to find that,
Mm,
or underrepresented groups
mm,
to that whole um, having to prove
yeah.
that you're good at something. And I think to answer your question, I think that was a turning point for me,
Mm,
the Mo course. But I've tried very hard not to kind of continue that, um, picking up things for the sense of picking up things.
yeah. Or putting too
And
much stock in a qualification or,
yeah,
a benchmark when, the continual journey up that spectrum is
yeah,
perhaps more important or serves you more to pay attention to.
yeah, exactly. And I think again, it's really context dependent. So I think it's really, really important to be evidence based. As I said, I'll bang on about that for days. Um, uh, but also, continuously kind of practice and hone things. So I'm all for continual professional development. But for me, it's that kind of being a bit more intentional
Mm,
about it. And I think in that context, my occupational psychology background has really supported me with that. Um, to know that I am grounded in that, and that really supports me in my coaching practice as well,
mhm.
and helps me to feel confident in the value that I bring and my intentions and the work that I do when I partner with people and businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And thinking about having both this coaching skill set and this psychologist skill set, where does it feel like those two skill sets encourage you to be the same person or encourage you to do the same thing when you're interacting with people? Like, what's the overlap in those two skill sets?
The overlap for me is insight and development. And learning. So that's where they intersect for me. And I whilst you might be doing different pieces of work and areas in occupational psychology, so it might be, for example, well-being, they generally overlap, right? Well-being generally overlaps with leadership. And if you are doing, like I have done and I'm doing at the moment, working with leaders, ultimately, their personal well-being comes into it somewhere. Their personal motivations, how they engage with their work, with the people that they manage, if they manage any, or the people that they lead. That all comes into it. It's such a massive overlap, and it's very difficult to distinguish the two, other than coaching as a practice in its own right. For me, I definitely bring a coaching approach into the work that I do, because for me the consultancy, it feels more along the lines of co-creation and collaboration. So whilst I'm using my background and my psychology expertise to support that and almost create a container, it is working ultimately in partnership with someone or something as a business or organization. And people are at the root of it all. And I'm fascinated with people and their behavior, and people at work are sometimes very similar to people at home and sometimes not at all. And it's fascinating.
Thank you. And when you talk about coaching, feel like a very collaborative framework, how would you position the kind of the psychologist side of things when you think of how it works with other people, if coaching is like a very collaborative model?
I would say they're very similar. I think that is dependent on what the client expects from you. And I think that is a massive conversation about contracting. Maybe a conversation about marketing in the first instance, but contracting and having those really kind of basic conversations with whoever you're talking to in the business, and actually, what do they want? Why have they got in contact with you? Or because time is precious. So what is it that they feel that you could bring to their people, to their organization, and what lens are they seeing it through? Everyone sees it through a different lens, depending on maybe their role in it, right? So you might have a stakeholder that comes to you with one perspective and one lens, and then if you join a group meeting, that might completely flip the other way.
So that might be like a company saying, we want you to come in and help improve our communication. And then you get in this specific team, and then you get to the team and they're like, we want you to help us improve our workflow or something else.
Yeah, exactly. And it's knowing what those things are, and knowing, I'm going to use the word deliverables. What are the expected deliverables, and what are the outcomes that are expected from both sides as well, and agreeing that. So I would say it is still collaborative, and the reason that I love the word co-creation is because it doesn't mean 50-50. I think that's always a common misconception of co-creation, is that you break it evenly, but it's not. It's what can you provide that's kind of beneficial to creating something together, and managing what emerges, new information that comes in, and adapting to that. What you agree or have a conversation about at the beginning may change, and it's about being open to that. So I think it is still very collaborative, very co-creative, but there is an air of, if a organization is looking for your guidance, that is what my work psychology background is there for. I'm not gonna hide it. I can only suggest what might be helpful acts moving forwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And at its core, what are the changes that organizations are most commonly asking for your support with?
Leadership development, management development, and often when you speak to people, it can be a mix of personal and kind of systems that all kind of come together in this, swirl of chaos
Yeah.
for people. So yeah, primarily management development, leadership development. But I always, caveat that with it is very difficult to separate the two. People bring in behaviors from their personal life and their experiences in their personal life, and also their prior experiences in their professional life. They bring that into their workplace. So ultimately, for me, it does come down to people and systems, and how people and systems interact and engage with one another.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, if this was a pie chart, roughly what proportion of the work you do with people is around like a pure coaching empowerment kind of work versus a like a mentoring or teaching or like helping them or kind of giving them templates or systems to use kind of work.
Yeah, I do run workshops, masterclasses. I've co-created leadership development programs previously, and they tend to be separate. So the coaching approach might be built into those workshops or those programs, but generally speaking, there is a separate but connected, if you will, coaching element. So it might be one-to-one coaching with those people on the program. It might be group coaching with those people on the program. But the coaching approach comes from the questions are asked in that facilitation of the program or whatever it is that you might be doing. So, for example, I led kind of a self-leadership program recently, and that was 3 in-person sessions, I believe, and also group coaching alongside that, actually in the form of action learning sets, more so because it's about action more than that purely reflective stage. So it's a mix of both. So I think it's being able to fluctuate and to change when you need to. It is not my natural state to really enjoy having to adapt in the moment, but it's something that I've become quite good at.
Yeah.
Out of necessity, the world is changing. It's constantly changing. It is what they call it: volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. The VUCA world, right? And I think lots of people are feeling that nowadays, more so in their careers, in their personal life, just the state of the world. And yeah, I've spoken for long enough to forget your question, Alex. So you are going to have to give me a little prompt.
Yeah, talking about kind of what portion of your work is typically like coaching versus where we might be thinking of it more as teaching or training
Mm.
or mentoring?
Yes, so I would say teaching or training is less so.
Mhm.
So that would be the smaller scale.
Yeah.
I tend to love the facilitation side of things. So of course there are things that you can bring in that training sense of like this is a framework, but the learning comes from putting that into practice and creating that condition or supporting an organization to create those conditions to really kind of reinforce that, to give people the best opportunity
Mm.
to put that learning into practice. So I would say coaching is the majority
Yeah.
of what I do. Of course, people confuse coaching and mentoring at times. And sometimes people just want to be told what to do. You know, sometimes choice is not as fun as we think it is.
Yeah.
And I really see that sometimes that, yeah, choice can be a burden
Yeah.
at times to people. Yeah, coaching for the most part, like discovery, exploratory, and with permission, I'll bring in frameworks and perhaps more kind of typically considered training examples or tools.
Great. And working with a lot of leadership or people in management positions, I'm really curious what you found people's perception of coaching tends to be. Is this something that people are very familiar with at this point? Is it something people are, reluctant coachees when they're prescribed it? Is this something that people, what's your take on the perception of coaching across a typical organization that you work with?
Mixed, and it depends how they got there. So I also do associate work with different organizations, and a question that I like to ask is, how do the people that I end up coaching, come into contact with me? Like, how do they get here? Is it something that they've sought out themselves? Has it been a suggestion? What does that look like? And I think context is really key here. I used to coach on leadership development programs in policing, both for neighborhood officers and detectives. And it was part of the program. So I wouldn't say it was prescribed as such, but it was there. Like, people knew what they were to some degree. They'd read it. They knew that this was a part of it, but they hadn't necessarily experienced it before. So some people are a lot more open than others. Some people love it within the first session, and some people not so much. And I think my personal approach on this is that I want to work with people that want to work with me, and that they have that intention and motivation behind them because they want it, not because someone else has told them that that they need it. Because I'd argue that not everyone needs coaching. It and it's often seen as a luxury as well. That's a whole other topic that I won't get into, but it definitely depends on the people. I think some people, based on their experiences, will make assumptions of what coaching is and what it isn't. And for some people, they associate it with performance development. So, and that might be just because it's what initially comes into their mind when they hear the word coaching, or it might be because they know someone has experienced that, or they've experienced it themselves, and perhaps an organization has in the past used that as a an action in what might be seen as kind of changing someone's performance at work, but only after, it's got to a state where it's causing friction.
Or we might feel defensive about any intervention at that point.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's that, does this feel like an intervention? Or does this feel like something that is for me? And so in those conversations with those officers that I coached, I would lay that all out in that first conversation and be like, hey, look, this is what coaching is. Are we on the same page? Kind of get that feel from them and say, look, how can we make this space useful for you? Right? And it might be that I tentatively used those coaching tools at the beginning, and I would adapt that to each individual that I would speak with, and each coaching session looks so different depending on what the person brought. And even for the same person, sometimes they just didn't feel open perhaps to coaching in all its glory on that particular day, and that looks different for them. And it's meet the person where they are, the same way that the organizational consultancy is meet the organization where they are. And then you can figure out whether or not that's going to work for you, because I'm also a big believer of letting people choose. And I also have that conversation right at the beginning of my coaching sessions and any partnership with an organization about, this needs to work for you and it needs to work for me so that we can partner really, really well together. So what does that look like? And challenge me if you don't think that that's the case, or give it a go, and then have that conversation with me later down the line. But please, I encourage that conversation, because it's necessary and it stops people from continuing things that aren't working for them. Because they feel like they're already on a path.
This really takes me back to an associate position I held doing career coaching for neurodivergent clients who were in work and were getting workplace support through the government's Access to Work scheme, and it'd be one of the support tools they'd be given often by their line manager, and not always with like, hey, how would you, here's a range of things that we can offer you to support you as you find things difficult as a neurodivergent person in our workplace. Like, what would you like? And it would often be, here's 6 times 2-hour sessions of coaching, and they'd come in with me, and I'd be like, cool, like you don't trust me, you don't know me, you didn't choose me, and like you say, little by little, showing them that I was there for them, and this was their space, and hopefully doing a good enough job that they ended up believing it and being able to use it. Yeah.
I think that's not an uncommon experience, depending where you find yourself coaching. And I don't necessarily think it's all in all a bad experience either. I think there's a lot of learning to be had from one managing that situation when you find yourself in it, and being like, oh, okay, this person does not trust me, and rightly so. I'm a stranger. And that is what the coaching builds as well. And you build that through that non-judgmental human conversation that they may not have been expecting right from the get-go, and keeping that confidentiality, but also being upfront with them, being like, hey, if any safeguarding issues come up, this is what I need to do. And it allows them to have an informed choice around what they tell you and what they do next. And ultimately it gives people control, autonomy. And that's really important in any form of motivation, as we know. And that connection is also really important for motivation personally and professionally, right? And those are two really important factors that you may not have right at the beginning of that coaching engagement. And it's learning for the coach, and it's also learning for the coachee, because I've been in that situation where it has felt frosty.
Yeah.
Even, right, on a first session. And I've learned to bring up the elephant in the room and be like, hey, I'm a stranger to you. Like, you don't need to, tell me all your woes. Like, this isn't what this is. But, it is time and like a contained space for you. And they can decide what is going to be beneficial. And more often than not, in those experiences, I've had the strongest coaching relationships with, and at the end, they've been, very grateful, which, is neither here nor there, but they've been very appreciative of that experience and said, actually, it's not something that I would have necessarily sought out by myself, but I'm really glad that I've had it, and it's been really helpful to me. And on top of that, for me, it's about, as a coach, not necessarily teaching, but letting someone experience coaching and what coaching actually can be. And that's what coaching is as well. It's challenging our own assumptions, isn't it? And societal assumptions. And it challenges those initial assumptions that people had going into that, and being like, hey, this isn't what I expected. And, I can leave as well, that, freedom of choice.
Yeah, the ultimate point of agency is to opt out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing. And just as we come to the end of our episode, would you paint a picture for us on where you might see yourself in a few years' time?
Oh, tough question. Again, I think that's something that I would have relished in a few years ago. But if I look back every few years of my life, my working life specifically, nothing has ever turned out how I would have not necessarily liked it to, but maybe would have communicated it in the moment. And I think my overarching approach in the last few years, which I've really had to kind of build this muscle because it is not my natural approach, is to see what emerges, and of course, I'll be directing that as and when I can, and influencing wherever I can.
And which direction are you like directing at? Like, is there a direction you're kind of just like leaning into or pointing in at the moment, in where you'd like that to shift into?
Yeah, well, although I've had my coaching consultancy for about five years, it is only recently included the work psychology element, and that is something that I think is really underrated in the workplace. Lots of things are relational, and lots of tensions can benefit from communication and improvement of systems, and just generally focusing on people. And I think that is something that I would like to do more of with very purpose-led organizations. So
Nice.
As I said, I'm from the third sector. It doesn't necessarily just talk to the third sector. It talks to public and also private, but it's one that is driven by purpose and also looking after its people. For organizations that want to nurture, right, people rather than see that as a secondary priority, because I think it's something that is lacking and is really powerful, actually, when you start to learn about people and kind of what's going on for them, what motivates them, and how that interacts in dynamics with colleagues, with bosses, with managers, with people that you might line manage. It all seems on the face of it very simple, but soft skills are not soft, they're hard skills. They're very, very difficult, and they are the challenge that I see people face day in, day out. It's not, managing someone, it's not about, actually, I need to approve their holiday. That's not the hard bit. The hard bit is, how do I have a conversation with someone about a difficult topic, right? How do I give this person feedback that's meaningful to them and supports the organization? Like, that's the hard stuff. And for me, work is all relational, and organizations could benefit from that greatly if they chose to.
Amazing. Thank you, Dani. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm sure we'll see you around the Mo ecosystem soon.
It's been lovely to chat. Thanks for having me, Alex.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Podventures on the Mo podcast. I am Kate, your co-host, alongside Alex. If, after listening to today's episode, you feel compelled to share your story, please email info@mofoundation.com. We would love to hear your story and have you here as a guest on the podcast. If you have been enjoying the Mo podcast, please do leave a review. It helps the team so much understand what you want to hear more of, what type of guest speakers you enjoy. If you want to recommend a guest speaker who you think we should be talking to, let us know. We will endeavour to feature them. If you love Mo so much that you don't ever want to miss an update, subscribe to our channel so that you will be notified every time a new episode comes out and you won't miss a thing. That's all from us today. See you next time.